It's a way of life for any adult human being who cares about their current and future health. It's about time we showed more love to ourselves and gave ourselves more respect. A lot of us have been looking after other people our whole life, and it's time to start looking after ourselves. I saw so many ladies who'd been putting on weight during the menopause, myself included, happened to me, thinking, well, this is no good, I've got to eat less, obviously. Insulin is a fat storage hormone. And this was like, hearing that was like sacrilege, because when we were training, we'd been taught you must eat 3 times a day and you must have 2 snacks.
Hi, I'm Cary, and welcome to the Eat Nourish Love podcast. For over 20 years, I've created events, raised over 4 million for good causes, and been lucky enough to meet some incredible people along the way. This podcast is about exploring stories and insights that really shape us, with inspiring guests from wellness, business, self-care and personal growth. It's about learning to trust our intuition and discovering what truly matters, and how, with hard work, belief and tenacity, we can make so many things happen. So I'm very excited to welcome you because you're a nutritionist, a metabolic health expert and author of The Human Being Diet. This has made such a difference to so many people. I know lots of people who've done it. I've done it. I did it a couple of years ago and I think I need to start again. But anyway, how did it all begin? Where did it all start?
Well, it's a bit like you, Caroline. I came to nutrition out of desperation, looking for a solution, a health solution for my child. And I think that's how you came to this as well. So it's kind of a similar story. And actually, when I was studying, I found that everybody who, all the fellow students were there because they or somebody they loved had a health problem which they were trying to sort out. So it's love, as usual, that underpins everything. Yeah.
It's the solutions, isn't it? It's finding the solutions to it. But it's such a great name. Where did the name come from?
It's called The Human Being Diet. And I did wrestle with the word diet because it does have very many negative connotations. But diet in its original sense means way of life. And that's what this is. It's a way of life for any adult human being who cares about their current and future health. So that's what I wanted to convey. And diet, using the word diet in its original sense, as in Mediterranean diet or plant-based diet, it's how we eat. It's nothing to do necessarily with weight loss. So that's why.
So at the beginning of your book, it's dedicated to your mother. What was the reason for that?
Dedicated to my mother because without her I wouldn't be here. And she taught me so much about life, but also about love. And she was a very, very special person. And she proofread the first edition and she really encouraged me to keep going with it. And of course, she taught me to read when I was 3. And that really fired my love of reading, my love of books. So I have a lot to be thankful and grateful to her for. She's a very important person in my life. Yeah.
That's extraordinary. So the Human Being Diet. So you say, are you ready to change? Are you ready to turn your life around? And how does mindset play a role in that success? So it is a decision, isn't it? People come to a point where they go, actually, I want to do something about this. I'm not happy anymore.
Yeah, a decision, and also very often a certain desperation. A lot of midlife women are attracted to this, and they've tried everything else. They've tried all the diets to lose weight or to address their underlying health niggles, and nothing works. It works for a bit, but it's too boring and too difficult to stick to. So the idea of this, the Human Being Diet, is not a quick fix. It's quite a structured 3-month program which leads into a new way of living. And during that 3 months, we discover which foods suit us personally, not which foods suit most people, and which we're better off without. And so it equips people with the tools that they need to feel as well as they possibly can. And the weight loss really occurs as a side effect of everything being brought back into balance. So rebalanced blood sugar, rebalanced hormones, less hunger, better energy, all those things that just make us feel good, to get more joy out of life. That's the key.
How did you actually come about putting the whole plan together? Because it's very different from a lot of other things out there.
It is. Well, it was really through my clinical practice, and I found myself very busy soon after I graduated. Word spread, and I got a really good reputation for helping people with weight, but also with skin and digestive problems. And whenever I said to anybody, gosh, I've got this waiting list and I can't see the people who want to come and see me, the answer was always, well, put your prices up. And I did, but people kept coming. But it began to dawn on me that that really wasn't fair, that people shouldn't have to be well off in order to learn how to look after themselves. And so I was thinking about a way, how can I democratize this process? How can I reach more people and not charge, a fortune for helping them? And almost with that thought, I got a phone call from somebody who's commissioned to write an article for the Daily Mail. And I was listening to her talking, and with that, I thought, of course, why didn't I think of it before? It's got to be a book. So we had 3 months to take her through the program, to get her the results that she wanted. At the same time, I had this picture in mind of somebody who might be reading that article, thinking, well, if only I had a couple of £1,000 to see a nutritionist and get personalised advice. And they'd scroll down to the end of the article and see that there was a book and realise that they could join in too for the price of that book, 2 or 3 cappuccinos. So that's what spurred me on. And as a result, the first edition was written in a hurry, needless to say, and it wasn't incredibly clear, but a lot of people picked it up and went with it and did really well with it. And then I rewrote it, and the second edition came out last year, which is a much, much clearer read. So the people who've just discovered HBD are very lucky because they're getting a much easier ride.
Yes, I used the original copy. I remember reading it, but actually it was but it was still absolutely brilliant. It was brilliant.
Thank you.
And what's quite interesting is the fact that, with some of the systems that are in place there, people talk about time restricted dieting and fasting and everything else. Well, you've got that in there, haven't you? Because you are between your 5 hours. If I'm right in saying that, so how does the fasting bit work? How does it all work really as a diet itself, as a way of eating more than a diet?
I mean, the fasting is the number one most important rule. And I studied a program called Metabolic Balance, which was founded by a wonderful German doctor called Wolf Funfak. And I think it was 2008 I came across him through my very good friend, Gloria Parfit, a fellow nutritionist. And he was saying, my dears, if you're always eating and snacking, you're always producing insulin. And insulin is a fat storage hormone. And this was like, hearing that was like sacrilege, because when we were training, we'd been taught you must eat 3 times a day and you must have 2 snacks. And when I started my training in nutrition, I was slim, I had good energy, I felt great. But I was a diligent student. So I started eating breakfast, and I started eating oats for breakfast because that was deemed the best kind of breakfast to have. And then I'd have a snack of nuts and seeds or something between breakfast and lunch, and then my lunch, and then another snack, and then supper in the evening. And I found myself putting on more and more weight and feeling more and more sluggish. But I thought, this is crazy, because I know that this is the way to metabolic health, because that's what we've been taught. So Wolf's voice, it was a lone voice in those days, who was saying, stop eating all the time, if you want to lose weight and feel better. And I thought, what a relief. So I went back to more or less what I'd been doing before, but eating 3 meals a day. Now I eat usually twice, sometimes once a day. I don't usually have breakfast. But breakfast is very important when we're out of balance, because it helps to reset our leptin hormone. It resets our sensitivity. And leptin is quite an intriguing hormone, because with leptin, it's the only way that our brain can see how much stored energy we have, i.e. how much fat we have. But we can lose our sensitivity to leptin, which means that the brain doesn't know whether we're hungry or not, and thinks that we probably are, and sends us searching for food, because it doesn't know how much fat we've got stored. So that's the number one most important thing with HBD. Get back to eating breakfast, preferably within 1 hour of waking, and that really helps to reset our leptin. And hunger levels. So that's key. So really, to give you a quick romp through the program, it's 3 months and split into 4 phases. So the first 2 days, phase 1, just eating lots of vegetables, and that's to clear our system out, to start the detox process, and to minimize detox reactions in the next 2 weeks. So the next 2 weeks is phase 2. That's 16 days of no oil, no alcohol. I do recommend that people also avoid dairy because it's such a common allergen. No sugar, no refined carbohydrates. Sticking to the rules, there are 10 rules. Eating 3 times a day and fasting for 5 hours between each meal. Because it's when we're fasting that our insulin levels drop low enough for us to start to access our fat stores for energy. And it's whenever we eat that our immune system is activated. And when our immune system is activated, that automatically also activates inflammation. And as we know now, inflammation is at the root cause of all our modern health maladies, from heart disease to asthma to insomnia, all those things, conditions that are underpinned by inflammation. So that's probably the most important thing we can do for ourselves. Start the day with a pint of water, eat breakfast within 1 hour of waking, and eat 2 other meals with no snacks and nothing but water in between. And so we do that for 2 weeks. We're weighing all our portions, by the way. So a normal portion is about 130 grams of fish, meat, chicken or tofu. So this is also suitable for plant-based folk, with 130 grams of vegetables. And as I was saying, during the 5-hour fast, we have nothing but water. And we carry on doing that for 2 weeks. It's quite tough, especially for some reason, around day 8, 9, 10. And very often we feel like just saying, actually, I've had enough of this, I can't do it anymore. And that's why, before we even start, it's really important to think about why we're doing it, what we want to change, what are the things that are stopping us from getting the most joy and enjoyment and energy out of life, and how will making those changes make us feel? How will it change our life? So as long as we're really clear about that, that can help us get through the whys, can help us get through the wobbly days. So then on day 17, people move into phase 3, which is very exciting. And it's when we add the extra virgin olive oil back in as the only additional oil to our diets. We don't have to be so picky about, for instance, only eating chicken breast, because that's higher in protein and lower in fat than chicken legs. So we can have all the different parts of chicken. But most importantly and most joyfully, we get to have a treat meal once a week. So once a week, we get to sit down with our friends, our family, and feast and have whatever we fancy. Some wine, some chips, some baked potato with lashings of butter. The key with a treat meal is to have lots of extra fats. So it's not suddenly loading up on sugar and carbohydrates. It's the extra fats that are important. And then we stay in phase 3 for at least 10 weeks. If we're happy with our weight at the end of 10 weeks, we move into phase 4. If we're not happy, if we haven't quite got to where we want to be, or we're still quite far away from where we want to be, weight-wise, we continue on into phase 3 until we're happy in our skin, and then we move into phase 4. So it's a prescribed 3 months, which then leads into the forever phase, when we're really well equipped with knowing what our body likes, knowing what it doesn't like, knowing that we're not going to die if we eat smaller portions than we're used to, know that we can carry on having our treat meals and fitting HBD into holidays and life in general, and just feeling so much better. And by the way, also, of course, having got rid of the clothes that are very possibly too big for us by the end of phase 3, because if we don't do that, we're saying to the universe on some level, I might need you again. I'm going to keep you in my cupboard, but there's no going back. It's getting them out of our space and out of our cupboards and out of our heads. So that's really a quick romp through it. And it has, because it's a way of eating that's anti-inflammatory, because we've got rid of the snacking and we've got rid of the ultra-processed foods, we're only eating foods that deliver the most bang for their buck, nutritionally speaking, minimally processed, wholesome foods. We've also got less inflammation in our body. And when we've got less inflammation, we've got less pain. Our digestive system works better. We sleep better. Our energy is improved. And everything just feels lighter and brighter, including our mood, because there's a big link between what's going on in the gut and with inflammation and with how we feel about life in general, how much energy we've got and how cheery we feel. So it's all very easy when we know how. The number one thing is we stop snacking. And snacking, by the way, includes coffee between meals, because anything between meals that's not plain water has the capacity to affect our blood sugar and therefore our insulin levels. So everything's being given a rest. Our insulin levels are allowed to go down, and with that, our inflammation goes down because insulin is a pro inflammatory hormone. And the other thing that's happening when we're fasting is that our friendly gut microbes, our probiotics, are being allowed to get on with their repairing work. They also produce anti-inflammatory substances. So it's a win-win having the fast between meals. And I know it's difficult when we start, especially if we've been led to believe, as I had through my nutrition training, that it's really key to keep snacking through the day. It's a big, big change. So it's really about lowering inflammation. And the number one most important way of doing that is to start the day with half a litre, a pint of water, and to get used to cutting out the snacks, only having water between meals. And that allows the inflammation to subside, makes us feel better.
And can this be for any age? What sort of age? I mean, if people are, because obviously with things like you talk about inflammation and diabetes and all these things, obviously children and teenagers, they get it at a younger age. So how do you go about helping children without putting this diet, this because it's quite hard, isn't it, as a parent, if your child is getting overweight and there are problems, is to get them into the mindset of dieting?
Yeah, I think that's quite dangerous territory, as you say, and I think really the most important things are with children. And HPD is not really suitable for anybody under the age of 18. They need to have finished growing. Is to get rid of the ultra processed foods, the Cocoa Pops and even Weetabix and things like that, and give them whole foods, and also get rid of the sugar. So it's sugar and processed wheat in particular that are the real baddies. And that's what I found for my son, that when we took him off, because he had a lot of antibiotics when he was little, and we took him off wheat and took him off sugar, took him off dairy, started giving him probiotics to put back the good microbes, and he completely recovered. And it was that, realizing the curative power of natural, whole, minimally processed foods has on our health. Hippocrates all those years ago said, let food be your medicine and medicine be your food. And it's true today, as it was then. It's really, really key. So we need to think about eating real foods and feeding our children real foods and fresh vegetables. And, it can feel like a bit of a faff when we first start. But once we get used to eating in that way, there's no way that we want to go back to eating all that processed junk.
There's something very lovely, isn't there, when your children, and I notice this now with grandchildren, the fact that they actually want to cook with their parents and are interested in food. I think that's such a
Yeah.
lovely thing to do. I actually was trained. I went to Police years ago, and then went back and worked there for a bit. But and I just think food is such a big thing for our family coming together, and the food, and it's not just about food. It's not just about eating. It's about the family. It's about the communication, and also an awful lot of loneliness around because people are not cooking, they're not cooking anymore. They're all on their screens.
It's so sad, isn't it? Either on their screens or with their food on their knee in front of the telly. And, I think many families don't even have dining tables now, which is really sad because, yeah, as you say, it's family. It's a kind of tribal thing. And when you think about how we evolved, when we were running around in the caves, the hunters would go out in the morning, hopefully catch something and put it in the pot. And the people who weren't hunting were going out with their little bags looking for roots and shoots and berries and things like that. And with any luck, the hunters would come back and it would be a time of celebration, and we'd light the campfire and we'd all be sitting around the fire together, listening to the stories from the elders, all feeling safe and united. And we've lost that, which is really sad. Yeah.
So, it's quite interesting because actually, you look at what you said, and it's quite hard, and people might give it up at day 8, 9, 10, whatever. But it's actually going back to some of the things that used to be. It's like we've just become so we overeat so much, we snack the sugar, and it's not people's faults. I think it's really important that actually that we don't beat ourselves up for these things, which is actually giving people confidence, because, it's even with your morning routine that is, if you're not doing it, you then say, oh, I'm bad, I haven't done it this day. So you need to do it so that it doesn't become that thing that you beat a stick with.
Exactly. That's such a good point. So it's not about deprivation. It's about actually giving our bodies and brains what they need to function at their very best. And that's another thing about thinking about food is all around us. Whereas in our evolution, it was a problem because it was scarce. And the ones of us who survived, who are here now, are the ones of us who are good at eating a lot of food when food was available, and who are good at storing the excess as fat. But our new survival technique or mode or way of being has to be to ignore the food that's all around us. And especially all the, the appealing advertisements and the sweets for children in their prettily wrapped little sparkly colours and things like that. And just think, well, wouldn't we want to eat the foods that we evolved on, the foods that made us human, the foods that speak to our DNA, the foods that turn down inflammation inside us? And those are the foods that we can find in any supermarket. In the fresh section, the fresh vegetables and fruit, meat, fish, chicken, tofu, all those things, and just focus on eating real foods that we recognise for what they are. That's absolutely key. And not beating ourselves up. We're all a work in progress.
So I just wanted to thank Meggie Wellness for sponsoring this podcast. I have always been really lucky with my hair. It's always been full and healthy. I've never really needed much help. But then I was lucky enough to try some of the products from Meggie Wellness. And I cannot tell you, my hair is so much fuller, shinier, and it's growing faster than ever. If you're dealing with thinning hair, breakage, or hair loss, their shampoo, conditioner, rejuvenating serum, and supplements are designed to nourish the scalp and support healthy hair growth. What I really love too is that there are no harsh chemicals. Meggie Wellness products are 100% vegan, cruelty-free and free from SLS, silicons, parabens, GMOs and PEGs, and they're all in beautiful, sustainable packaging. So if you want stronger, healthier hair, why not try some of Meggie Wellness products? And you can get 20% off, excluding bundles, with the code EAT20. If you go to the bottom of this podcast, you can see the code EAT20, and there's the link. Yes. So when people have gone through it and they come to the sort of the long phase, do you give support to people who are doing that? Is there a community that people can join or be part of so that they can follow through? Because it's so easy, isn't it, to just go back to old habits? Because it's like the elastic band, isn't it? It's so easy just to go back.
Elastic band. Exactly. No, there is. We started the HBD Club in January this year, and it's a really exciting place to be. It's supportive and helps motivate and inspire people, and also helps us keep accountable. We're following each other's journeys, and it's not just for phases 1, 2, and 3. A lot of people are going to be there in phase 4 because they love to be part of that community of like-minded people. So there's never any need for any of us to feel that we're doing this alone. There are a lot of people. We've got, I think, nearly 700 members now in the club. And it's a really lovely, really heartwarmingly kind and supportive place to be. Yeah.
And is that done through Facebook, social media? How is that? How have you set that up?
So it's an app called Circle. And they have it's a speciality app for communities. So we have a weekly live with me talking about something like leaky gut, for instance, and then we have Q&A. There's community chat where everybody communicates together, asking questions. There's a place called Celebrating Our Wins, where people quite often post before and after pictures. So celebrating their scale wins, but also their non-scale victories, their NSVs, about how much better their skin's looking, how much better they're sleeping, what it's like to be able to fit into their clothes, even when their weight hasn't changed, their measurements sometimes have. And there's also a place called Eat, which is for amazingly inspiring recipes and food blogs, and a place where members can post their own food ideas, so eating ideas. and a question and answer board. So it's a really vibrant, fun place to be. Yeah.
So talk to me about exercise and what sort of exercise you recommend for people and what you do.
Well, a lot of people, when they come to HPD, as we were saying, they've tried a lot of other things. We're all pretty stressed out, and what we need more of in our modern life is less stress and more downtime. And cardiovascular exercise is interpreted by the body as a stressor. It increases our cortisol. And what we want to do with HPD is really reduce the amount of cortisol we're producing. So that means not going to the gym, going for gentle walks outside, walks in nature. If we're not in the countryside, walking in some of the parks are beautiful, feeding the ducks, things like that, just reconnecting with the slowness of life, which, it seems so unnatural now, and spending more time resting, relaxing, repairing. And that's what happens when we're in parasympathetic nervous mode, whereas most of us are in sympathetic mode. That's like foot to the floor, accelerator jam down, it's run, 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 go, go, go. We want to take ourselves out of that. So that's why the rule for no cardio exists, at least for the first 16 days.
So talk to me about your sort of diet. Obviously now, your maintenance, it's what you do every day. It's what you do every month. So what does your daily food look like, your menus?
I don't eat breakfast unless I'm doing a reset. And actually, we are going to be doing a reset starting, I think it's next week. So I will force breakfast down. And for me, that breakfast would be 35 grams of a mixture of ground sunflower and pumpkin seeds, no other seeds, with a grated apple, with cinnamon and salt and pepper. And it sounds like squirrel food, but it's actually delicious. So I'd have that for breakfast. Then lunch here, me and Ricardo, is normally a salad of some kind, with chicken, sometimes with eggs, boiled eggs or fried eggs or whatever. Fish, something like cold prawns maybe, maybe even tuna. And then in the evening we tend to cook something. Very often we cook together. Again, one type of protein, meat, fish, chicken, whatever, with a mixture of vegetables, aiming always for at least 3 different types. Because when we have at least 3 different types of vegetable, we're feeding more microbes than we would if we were just feeding one. And our microbes are central to our health. And so we might as well look after them so they, in turn, look after us. So that's what it looks like. No snacks, just water in between. If I'm not on the reset, I tend to have 2 coffees in the morning, and that's it. On the reset, I'd have 1 coffee after breakfast, another coffee after lunch, and then, as I say, just water in between. And it makes you feel good.
It's interesting about coffee. So coffee with the fasting things that a lot of people are talking about at the moment. Coffee is something you can have all day, and it doesn't affect the blood. Well, actually, that's not true. Some people say that it might, and some people it's questionable, isn't it? But isn't it
Yeah.
individual? But it's best not to.
Best not to, because many of us are sensitive to caffeine. And what that means is caffeine sensitivity is it activates our fight-flight system. It's mild, but it's there. So when we drink coffee on an empty stomach, it can result in releasing more cortisol, which we don't want. We want everything quiet. And especially in the case of autoimmune disorders, we want, the digestive system just working as it should, no leaky gut, taking all the pressure off the digestive system, and just keeping everything in the body as quiet and balanced and soothed as possible. And, lots of us can't really function very well without coffee. And that's the message. Mainly, we're not drinking it so much for the taste as for the effect. So that's a bit of a clue, bit of a giveaway.
It's a bit like wine and non-alcoholic wine. Was lucky to have Amanda Thompson from Naughty, the brand. We did a podcast together earlier, and and it's not the fact that she still loves drinking, but actually it's some of the best customers are the people who are drinking, but they just want to moderate it. So it's quite clever. But
exactly.
Her goal was to get the sugar down, which is really, really so.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
I heard about that. I'm looking forward to trying it. Yeah.
well, she's lovely, and yes, I love it actually. And another thing that actually I do and I love because I've always I started doing it for I read a book and I started doing cold water therapy some time ago, and I did it more for sort of circulation reasons. And actually, I suddenly there was something I was doing that was changing my mood, and extraordinary. And I realized that it was that, because then I stopped doing it and I thought, well, what have I changed?
I love it. Ricardo, my husband, used to get up when we were living in London in the dark in the winter and head off to the Serpentine. And I used to lie in bed thinking, what is the matter with him? But he said to me, come with me just once, just, try it and see. And luckily for both of us, it was a beautiful, beautiful, still morning. We got to the Serpentine just as the dawn was breaking. The sky was pink. The water was glassy. I got in there and, got out again 15 minutes later, and that was it. I was hooked. I think it's so good for us. So good. And that really lowers inflammation. And inflammation is one of the reasons that we don't feel so cheerful in life. So it's really important that we do everything possible to lower our inflammation levels, and cold water is a very good way to do that.
So inflammation is such a big one for so many different conditions, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. I mean, it's confusing for us because inflammation is a normal part of the immune system's response to any kind of threat or danger. So if we get cut, if we see a lion, if we see a traffic warden, our immune system is activated, and that puts us into fight or flight and gets this whole cascade of hormones going. But we don't need to activate that kind of inflammation. We don't need to activate our immune system in those ways anymore because we're not dealing with those kind of stressors. We're thinking about things like traffic wardens and mortgages and bills and things like that. And activating our immune system is not going to help. So what we get when all those stresses are present and constant is something called low-grade inflammation. And it doesn't reach a high enough peak to tell the immune system to turn it off, which is what should happen, when we're fighting bugs or, recovering from an injury. The inflammation reaches a peak, the immune system is switched off actually by substances that come from omega-3 fish oils, and then the inflammation, the infection, whatever it is, goes down. But now we're in a constant pro-inflammatory state because of what we're eating and drinking, our lifestyle, and because of stress. So it's really, really important that we get to grips with that. And that's what HBD is all about.
Where do you see the human being diet go? Where do you see your community? What do you see in the future?
Well, at the moment, I'm really building up the club. I'm very active in there. There will be another couple of books, hopefully next year, more cookbooks. And then I would like to, I really love writing and I love researching. And I'd really like to, to help educate people more, because HBD is really just scratching the surface, of what we can do. It's not to say that, by following that book, the advice in that book, everybody is going to feel better. It's a no-brainer. But I'd like to maybe go more in depth on some of those areas. I think that would help people. That would be a good thing to do.
Well, it takes a lot of time to put these things together. Do you still do the Epsom salts? Is that still part of the diet?
Yep, so that's day 1, phase 1, 1 day only, Epsom salts. Not, by the way, if anybody has any kidney problems, you don't want to be taking magnesium because that's what they are, magnesium sulfate. And you don't have to do the Epsom salts. A lot of people say, they're frightened of doing it because they've got IBS or whatever. It's absolutely optional. But I do recommend taking them if you can, because it's like a really good purge of our system. And it also relaxes our gallbladder. And I think, well, relaxed gallbladder sounds pretty good and gets the bile flowing again. So it's a good thing to do. Minimises detox symptoms.
Yeah, no, it's quite interesting because also magnesium, there's a lot of products that are coming out now with magnesium. In fact, someone suggested that you put some magnesium in the bath for babies, whatever, so it can go through the skin, obviously, because the skin is the biggest organ, etc. And I think the other thing that's so interesting about a lot of the stories that are on about the diet is people's skin has cleared up, and people usually with their skin, don't they?
Yeah, it's very interesting. When you think about the skin, you could sort of say that the skin on the outside is a reflection of the skin on the inside, i.e. the gut. When our gut's happy, our skin's happy, our eyes sparkle, we've got more energy and, generally more joy. So so much of it comes down to the gut.
So much of it comes to the... So I'd love you to share have you got a couple of sort of lovely case studies that things that have really made your heart sing, a couple of things over the years? helping people, or are there just so many of them?
There are so many, and I love what I do, and I love hearing people's stories. I spoke to somebody on Instagram, Sarah, yesterday, who'd had not only breast cancer but melanoma and all sorts of horrendous things, and she picked up HBD because she wanted to lose weight. She thought, well, at least I can get to grips with that. I feel terrible, but maybe if I can get my weight back down. She put on 4 stone thanks to all the horrible medications and antibiotics and everything else. And she lost 3 stone in 4 months, but she wasn't expecting to actually feel so much better. But she said she got rid of her migraine, her joints stopped hurting, she no longer had reflux, she was sleeping well, she had energy, she felt like her again. And so many wonderful stories about that, about just simply changing what and how we eat and the incredibly profound effects that can have on us. And I just love hearing people's stories like that. It's such an honour, really. And it's, all for the price of a book. Reading that book and really, really getting to understand the rules. It's something called deep learning, because it's very hard to follow rules when we're just blindly following them and we don't know why. And all that's is explained in detail in the book. Why we need to fast for 5 hours, why we need to just have one type of protein until we're in phase 4, why it's important to drink so much water, why extra virgin olive oil is the only oil to use. All those things, because when we understand the rules and the rationale, it makes following them a no-brainer. Because we know that if we break those rules, the only person we're hurting is ourselves. And it's about time we showed more love to ourselves and gave ourselves more respect. Charity begins at home. Number 1, look after us.
I know, but it's so easily said, isn't it? Because it is true, and then other demands come in place. But it's almost a non-negotiable that actually you're going to put yourself first. And I think that, if you can plan it, I think some people are planners and some people aren't.
People who do the best of it tend to be good at planning, or they make themselves good at planning. I think we can teach ourselves to be planners, by getting a journal and just getting really clear about our whys and what we want to change and why it's important and what we're prepared to do in order to achieve the results that we want. And it's like, again, looking after ourselves in the way that we'd look after, a friend who we loved who was about to embark on this. Well, we wouldn't say, well, just go out. I'm sure you'll find something to eat when you're out and about. We'd say, no, let's sit down and plan this out together. Here's what we're going to have for the next 3 days. All the meals. Going to make sure that we've got the food for those meals in the fridge. We're going to make darn sure that other family members know that that's our food and it's not it's not for them. And doing little things like that, thinking about making vegetable soups to have with the protein when the weather's cold. Just giving ourselves the best possible chance to set us up for success, which we deserve. A lot of us have been looking after other people our whole life, and it's time to start looking after ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you also think that sometimes they just want to do it quietly, and I think it's probably coming from me a little bit, people want to, because they don't want to fail.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. We tend to go down one of two paths with that. Either, like you, I'm a bit like that as well. I keep quiet about it just in case. But lots of us do really well in a community, or, by just having a buddy, somebody there responsible to answer, sort of that can really help keep them on track. And I think that most of the blokes on HBD are very quiet about it for that very reason, because they're worried that they might not be able to do it, I think. And the girls tend to be a bit more vocal.
Just bringing that subject up, talking about men and women and the difference of their metabolic, do you notice that it is different at how men lose, how this works for men and women?
I think the number one difference is that men tend to be there are fewer emotional eaters who are men. They're more likely to see food as fuel. Like we think of our cars, petrol in, performance out kind of thing. we get the speed that we want and everything else. I think that's the number one thing, that they're more inclined to decide that's what they're going to do and doggedly stick to it. And of course, they have bigger portions. And I think that's very important. If you're doing it with your husband or your partner, to start them off on bigger portions, especially if they've got a lot of weight to lose, because it can be very depressing for a guy to see 130 grams on a large plate. Also, another tip: get small plates. That really helps. Deceive the eye. But yes, men do brilliantly on it. There's somebody called HBD Dadbod on Instagram who's completely transformed. He definitely needs a new name now. A great, wonderful man called Sober Dave, who is a sobriety and he's a trauma-informed coach for sobriety. He's done incredibly well, because he found that when he stopped drinking, he was eating much more healthy, but the portions were much too big, and he was still plagued by the sugar monster. So it does work for guys, but as I say, they tend to be quieter about it.
So lovely talking to you. What I'd love to, because obviously a lot of people are going to be listening to this, I'd love you to leave three of your biggest tips for our listeners.
Thank you. Well, the biggest, number one, easiest, but sometimes people find it quite hard to do, is start every day with half a litre, a pint of water. Because it's exactly the moment that we need to drink water to flush out all that's been happening overnight, and detoxing and everything else. And personally, I find if I don't drink that water first thing in the morning, I don't really think about water. So if I'm finding myself going to the kettle to make coffee, I say, you've got to have your water first. And I make myself do that. Second thing, if you're out of balance in any way at all, you want to lose weight, start the day with breakfast within an hour of waking. I saw so many ladies who'd been putting on weight during the menopause, myself included, happened to me, thinking, well, this is no good. I've got to eat less, obviously, and obviously I've got to exercise more. But it's when we lose that balance, and we lose our not only insulin sensitivity but also leptin, that breakfast in the morning becomes an absolutely vital part of the day. So start the day with protein and vegetables. Could be eggs with avocado and tomato, or tofu with spinach or whatever, but get that breakfast protein in. And the third thing is think about putting your gym membership on hold, and really slowing it down. So getting more time in the parasympathetic nervous system, which we were talking about, going for walks, taking the pressure off us rather than piling it on, rather than thinking, I've got to lose weight, I've got to spend more time doing awful treadmill running in the gym. Just forget about that and spend more time in the rest repair parasympathetic nervous system. Those are the three most important things, I'd say. And 4, get rid of the sugar. Kill the sugar monster. He is not your friend.
Do our listeners know where you are, where they can get your book, how they become members of your club, etc.?
Thank you so much. And thank you, Cary. I really, really enjoyed chatting to you. And you asked great questions, I must say. So thank you very much. So you can find my website, thehumanbeingdiet.com. Instagram is Petronella Ravenshear. And the Human Being Diet Club, you can find a link on the website. And the book, so the Human Being Diet 2nd edition, you can find on Amazon, as they say here, Amazon rather than Amazon. And also the HBD cookbook. Both those are available on amazon.co.uk and .com. So, yeah. And really, thank you again so much, Cary. Really, really enjoyed it.
And next time you're in London, let me know, because I'll come and find you. Thank you.
I will. That'd be lovely. I'd love that. Thank you. Bye. Bye.